Welcome back to another episode of the Manna Daily Podcast. I am joined today by a very close friend of mine, Brandon Stokes, a guy that I met while we were at mutual school together down in PCC, Florida. Brandon, nice to see you again. How are you doing?
Good to see you too. Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good.
Nice, nice. Yeah, we we had a little bit of a unique story. He came all the way from Washington State. I come all the way from Connecticut. We meet at this mutual airport, and they said they're looking for two guys to pick up in the van to drive to the campus. And both guys' names are Brandon. And needless to say, we were both looking at each other like, this is kind of cool. We got into the van. We started talking. I think one of the first things we hit on with commonality was reading the Hardy Boys. That was
Oh
something that
yeah.
we found. We are like, oh, wow. So somebody actually else reads these older mystery crime novels. Both of us have a little bit of an interest in law. And so we started our friendship there. First couple of days, it was off and on. We'd see each other here and there, and then we just started becoming a clique, or just you know how it is. Everybody was always teasing around that we were like an unofficial couple on campus, but it was like Kroll and Stokes, Stokes and Kroll, and just we had a good bonding time down there. Do you got any stories of memorabilia of the old days?
I was actually just thinking about it earlier today. I was remembering remember Elijah?
Elijah did, yeah. Okay, so
So-
to give context, so Elijah Davis was this really annoying guy on campus that worked maintenance with Stokes and I. I was working warehouse, you were working power washer, and originally you were part of a different crew before you went
yeah,
onto that, right?
that was when I was still working on general maintenance as the pressure washer slash mover.
Yeah, yeah. And Elijah Davis was this kid that just had a knack of annoying everybody, would bounce a rubber ball at the back of people's heads, and he thought it was the funniest thing ever.
Or
And
your
so
face.
about that. So we went to the pool one evening, and Elijah Davis decided to throw the pool ball or whatever towards my face while we were in the pool. And eventually I was like, all right, that does it. I crawled out of the pool and I started chasing him around the pool. Instead, he ran to the men's room, and I was about to pursue him. I said, nah. As I'm walking away, the lifeguard hands me his little red staff thing, what you throw out when somebody's drowning in the pool. I was like, go ahead. I'm like, okay. So I go over there. Sorry, I'm still remembering your guys' faces. Okay, so when I go in there, and I guess he went to use the restroom. I came around the corner. I swung him. I got him, and he got so upset. He clawed at my arm, and Stokes was there to witness. There were like
Oh
three
yeah.
claw marks on my right arm or the left arm.
I followed you in there. I wasn't gonna miss that.
Yeah, and so I was like, "What did you do?" So then he runs to the back stall. I said, "All right, Elijah, when you get out of there, we need to have a talk." And he says, "Get away from me." Opens the door partially, and he takes out a chunk from my left side of my arm, like right in this area. And I was like, "What did you?" I said, "No, you need to come out right now. We're having a talk right now." And he says, "Get away from me." And he like throws a shove punch, and I took that opportunity. I threw back the stall door of the bathroom, and I just pursued pounding on top of his head. And as I was walking away, there was Stokes. There was there was like two or three of you guys all
Who?
standing right there.
Who
Klutz,
else?
Klutz
I
was
think
standing
I
there.
think I think Klutz was there at the same time.
Yeah,
I think it
Klutz,
was I
you.
think it was just me, you, Klutz, and then the lifeguard.
Yeah.
I think
So
that's
I'm
all that was
leaving,
there at
and
that time.
Elijah Davis rips open the bathroom door, says, "I am calling security." And I turned around, I'm like, "I don't care." And yeah, so this story on campus started to escalate, as it were, and it started coming down to like the guys who weren't respecting me so much in the warehouse. Angel, he's like, "Kroll, what's this
Oh, I
story I hear about
forgot
you on
about
campus?"
Angel.
Yeah, and he's like, "What's this story I hear about you on campus? You beat up Elijah
Yeah.
Davis." I'm like, well, "What version of the story did you hear?" And he goes, "Well, the story that I heard is that you threw him on the side of the concrete of the pool, and then you tossed him into the said pool." And I'm like, "What?" Like the story had escalated when I went into the cafeteria. Girls were looking at me, and young people were getting away. And I went into the elevator of Young Tower, and there was a guy, like super tall guy. He was almost as big as your brother-in-law, and he was just like, "Are you the guy that beat up Elijah Davis?" And I'm like, Why? Are you friends of his? He's like, no, I want to shake your hand if you did. But yeah,
I,
sorry. That story, I was surprised how much that had escalated.
I remember thinking when you were getting called before student life. So I was like, this is so completely unfair. If they kick him out, I'm dropping out. Like it's totally not fair.
It's like, dude, I remember I was working in the warehouse and I had I can't remember his name, but I got his accent down. I hear, hello, yes, he's here. Ow. Hmm. All right, I'll send him right over. Brandon. I'm like, oh shoot. And I went over there, and the first thing I did, I opened the door, and they both looked up at me, and I just went, ooh, and then I went, oh. They're like, okay, your story. He did not mention any of those things during his side of the story. You mind telling us what you got? And I was like, yeah. And then his dad didn't he come and pick him up like a 2014 BMW the next day, all the
It
way from Oregon?
it was a day or two.
Yeah.
There was like, oh, our kid's not safe here. He's being picked on because he didn't tell his parents that he instigated everything.
No,
He did come back a couple years later though.
threw a
The year
ball in my
the,
face. Like, oh yeah, I remember you messaging me. I was like, guess who's back on campus? I couldn't believe it. Yeah.
I think it was either the year I graduated or the year before I graduated. Um, he came back on campus. I'm like, well, shucks, not you. I don't
The,
know if he remembered me though.
probably not. I mean, the kid, he didn't have everything upstairs. It was
I,
that
I,
that was one of our many adventures on campus, folks. So no, I'm not a violent person.
I
At the
did
time, you
shoot
would have
the
thought
kid
I
in
was.
I did shoot the kid in the neck with my sniper rifle Nerf gun.
Oh, I remember the
But
Nerf gun
I
wars.
don't know if you were there for that. But
No,
I was testing out this brand new Nerf gun that I bought, and it was a sniper rifle, so it could hit 40 feet away. Aimed at the window, and it hit it, and then he was being annoying, and so I just picked it up a couple times, left a big old welt on the side of his neck.
payback.
He proceeded to start crying and ran away. I'm like, okay, I kind of feel bad now, but he deserved it.
Do you remember Grace and Prophet?
And I do not.
It was a kid on campus, and every time I saw him, I always pretend I was doing like a gun draw. And one time he saw me in the evening when he was walking back from the cafeteria, and he was walking up to me, and he pretended to draw a gun, and I had just gotten the 2-shooter Nerf gun pistol, and I actually pulled it up, and I was like, his eyes got so big. He's like, "You got a real thing right now?" I'm like, "Yes, I do." That was a big thing on campus. Yeah. So Stokes and I, we were frequently we would go to like the fine arts and whatnot, and that was literally where you were a captive audience. They did not give you the option to go or not to go unless you were running like security, you were doing dishes in one of the food industry things, or you had some special excuse to get out of that. Which you ended up becoming part of security, as I recollect.
I did, yeah.
In
I think it was the a probably a semester or two after you left. I joined security.
Was it after I left? I thought you were making moves into going towards that when I was still there.
I was probably making moves to go into it while you're still there, but I don't think I joined security until after Megan and I started dating, which was after you left.
Which, by the way, folks, I have to give a little story. I'm very happy about this. So, Stokes and I were sitting during one of these fine arts things, and I know that I'm not going to be there the next semester. So, I literally said to him, I said, I'm going to get you a woman before I leave this campus because I don't want you going to these events by yourself. And as we're sitting there, Stokes goes, well, if I had to go out with a girl, I want her to look kind of like that one. And Megan was walking by at that exact moment. And I was like, oh, yeah, she's in one of my classes. I got you. And Stokes was going, I'm like, what? He's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, no problem. I can put in a good word for you. I said, what's the worst you're gonna say? No, no to me, and then you'll never know. So I'm like, so I went to the class. I said, would you be okay with meeting a friend of mine? He's very interested in you, and we can meet at the cafe area on campus, and maybe go out for a coffee or something like that. And everybody in the class is just looking at her like, well, and the teacher's just going, she's like, okay. And the teacher's like, yeah, it's nice when you keep your options open. You never know. It could be the one. And so later on, Stokes and I are standing there. We're waiting for her to show up. And her brother, is it Kyle?
It's Kyle, yeah.
Yeah, big Kyle. He's almost like 7'6". He's like
He's
six something, right?
he's 6'7", 6'8", somewhere right around there.
Huge guy. And he comes over, and Stokes and I are like, okay, what are you standing here for? He's like, he's going to
Well,
be dating my little sister. And we were both like, oh, shoot. I'm like, good luck, buddy.
well, you had shown up before I did because I had to stop to use the restroom. So
Yeah,
I didn't want to use the bathroom before after meeting her, and
right.
so and so I went to use the bathroom first, and you went over to talk to her, and I came over and
One thing led to
found
another. I lent
Kyle there.
Stokes my plasma card, which is we were donating plasma to get a little extra money on campus because we're broke college students selling our bodies. What else is new? So I gave him my card because he was low on cash. I said, go have a donut, a croissant, have a little coffee, blah blah. It's on me. So it ends up being like around 10, 11 o'clock at night, and I'm messaging him how to go. He never messaged me back. So eventually, I'm messaging him at work, and I'm like, I hope they had a good time because I have no idea where my card is, and I have no idea how he's doing. And eventually, we bumped into each other, and they started hitting it off. Every time I saw him from like then on, they were everywhere together, doing everything together. And I was like, well, good. I'm glad they finally. So I have a little bit of a matchmaking thing. I'm very happy about that.
That's the best part of that story though is that night it was getting a little bit cold, and so she was running back to her dorm because she's like, I'm cold, I want to get inside, and so I never even got her number
Oh shoot!
until,
I did not
until
know
like
that.
until like 3 days later when we finally saw each other again, and so I had no way of contacting this girl. I'm like, I liked her and I wanted to see her again, and then I didn't see her until like 3 days later. But thinking
I
about
never knew
that,
that.
remember the next day when you're talking to your boss about it, you're just like, yeah, I set Stokes up with a girl, and my boss just walks up. He's like, you did what now? Like Stokes was with a who?
Yeah, everybody was shocked because the thing with Stokes is that he was incredibly shy when a girl like
Oh,
we'd
like
be sitting in chapel and
incredibly
like
shy.
we would be talking and all of a sudden he'd be like deadpan staring straight ahead and he's just like I'm like, oh, that's why. Because he would have a hard time talking. He was just so respectful and quiet and reserved. And so when a woman would sit next to him, it was just, dead silent. And so I'm kind of happy that worked out for you two. It's been like 4 or 5 years now?
Oh,
6?
we've been married for 5 years now.
5 years. Oh my gosh. Wow.
We
Wow.
actually last month hit our 5 month anniversary or 5 year anniversary. So
Kudos. I'm so happy about that. So that's awesome, dude. So, have you been able to use any of your degrees since leaving PCC?
I tried. I went to PCC for criminal justice.
Hmm.
After I graduated, spent 2 years trying to get a job in the field, but that was right around the time that George Floyd riots were going on and all this other stuff. I started questioning, do I really even want to be in this industry when there's defund the police riots going on, George Floyd riots? It's just like I don't know if I actually want to do that, and so I'm now in HVAC, working towards getting my HVAC journeyman license.
Nice. So you've been doing that for like 2, 3 years?
Going on 3 years.
3 years? Okay, so what
I've
is it, like a
been
4-year bachelor journeyman's?
um basically
Okay.
you have to take a 9 months long class, which I'm planning on taking next year,
Okay.
and you have to work in the field for 4 years.
Oh, so you're already
And
halfway, more
so
than halfway there.
yeah.
Okay.
So also going to the class technically is supposed to take a year of the requirements off. And so technically, if I go to class next year, when I graduate, I will be able to get my journeyman
Nice.
because I'll have all the hours ready for it.
And does that bump up the pay?
Yep.
Nice. Nice.
Um, Pay will be
Later. So anyways, you were saying you were
as as an apprentice, I can only get a certain amount, and then once I become a journeyman, it opens up the avenue for additional pay bumps.
okay.
So
Nice. Nice. And you think you're making a full career of that or just for like a decade or so and then you'll figure out what you're gonna do there?
I haven't fully decided yet.
Okay. Fair enough.
Um,
Fair enough.
I'm contemplating doing it for a number of years and then potentially opening up my own business, um, or just continuing working for the guy I'm working for.
Okay.
Um, haven't gotten my 10-year plan figured out yet. Um,
Yeah, if we have another 10 years, I mean, honestly,
I mean, the last company I worked for, I thought for sure I'd never work for another company, and then they screwed me over, and so I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm moving on.
right, right.
So you never know what's going to happen.
Well, I mean, especially in the political field, it seems to constantly bump into several line of work. I mean, for my stuff, it's like semi-informative journalism slash biblical symbology that I tap into, and it's definitely a controversial field, dude. Like everybody
Oh
throws
yeah.
stones at you because you're like, no, I'm not with you, and I'm not with them. And as you know, I've always been very libertarian centrist.
Hmm.
Um, and
Always.
again, in sentiments, not political party like Matt that we know. And I was like, isn't it weird that when you try to be neutral, that everybody starts throwing things at you?
Oh yeah. If you don't pick a side, then obviously you've chosen the side of against everybody.
Yes. Yes. Like you have to be with my side. You have to be with this side. It's like I don't care about your stupid colors or sides. I want to be by myself. I want everybody to have a shot at something. And I think that was another aspect that I think we really clicked with. And actually you're probably the only friend from PCC that I'm still in contact and on good terms with. Because you've always been open minded and you're probably the most chillaxed person I've ever met. And I mean that with all sincerity because I actually like that was the thing. Even when I went out there for your wedding, we were very laid back. We were chill. We could just enjoy the evening. I didn't feel tense,
Mhm.
dude. I actually was enjoying every second out there because I'm like, I don't have to stress. I'm with friends, and it's friends as in like I feel like family.
Mhm.
Whereas in other people that I've come into contact with, it's like I feel like I'm playing a game. I can't completely be open and honest with you. Um, I mean, I'm not trying to switch it where you try to say something nice about me, and nor do I want you to say that if you do not feel the same sentiments. But do you feel like we had some kind of special connection in that sense that we found a commonality of character?
Oh, absolutely. Um, I've always viewed you and Klutz. Those are the
Mhm.
only two people from PCC that I still talk to.
Except for your
Um,
wife.
well, except for my wife and Kyle.
Right. Oh yeah, Kyle too.
Um,
Kyle too.
but they're family.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so of the friends that I made down there, you and Klutz not only are the two that I still talk to, you're the only two that actually continue to talk to me. Um,
Fair.
like I've told you dozens of times I'm terrible at communicating with people. I'm
Mm.
terrible at keeping in contact. And you and Klutz are the only two that actually reach out and be like, "Hey, I haven't heard from you in a while."
Yeah, are you alive?
Everybody else that Actually, I had some people I considered friends at PCC um, unfriend me. No idea why. Just got off Facebook for about a year or two, get back on, and some people I considered friends were had unfriended me. I'm like, holy cow, okay. I see how I rate.
But you're like the least controversial, I think, because I had up to almost 400, 500 followers, and I got rid of almost like 300 something. So I'm like, real, not real, fake, pasty, but I like, you're one of the few people that I like, you don't get political. You don't
I
post.
refuse.
Well, you don't post. Well, I mean, the only questionable photo might be the one with the knife, which I absolutely love. But if somebody didn't know you, they're gonna think, okay, psychotic guy with a knife. Which that was another thing we had in common. We both have a love for sharp, pointy implements, which I loved, and I think
I
that's
actually
something
still
that
have that knife somewhere.
you do.
Yeah,
You don't have to get it, but I'm like, guys, it's a beautiful knife, and that's the thing is that we always had that thing where it was very we could always talk to each other about serious stuff when we were going through we can read the vibe off of somebody and you don't really need to talk too much to the person is like I could tell
hmm
when Stokes was having a bad day and I was like, was everything okay? And I remember one time you were having a problem with your dad trying to get back in touch in your life. You don't have to go into great detail, but I know that's something that you and I both have a commonality with. That there's a little bit of a struggle with both my adoptive father and my bio dad, who I haven't gotten in contact with. I don't want more drama in my life, but
I feel you on that.
right. But do you ever feel not necessarily unworthy as being a man or something like that? But do you ever feel like you've been kind of robbed from not having the consistency of a father figure in your life? In a sense of like what it is to be a man, how to do dating, how to do things around the house, or do you ever feel like a sense of loss?
Absolutely. Um, I I had a pretty good stepdad
Hmm.
in the picture. Um, love him to death, but at the same time, there's that loss of he's not my bio dad.
Right, right.
He's it's in the sense of he chose us is nice,
Mm,
but there's that connection that just was never there between us because he's not like I say he wasn't my bio dad. I wasn't his bio son.
mm,
There always felt like there was that missing connection between the two of us.
right. It's kind of
Um,
like the bastard plus one with like Jon Snow, where you're there, but there's always that little bit of a thing where you're like, I feel like it's just being nice, or I'm like your ward, but there's kind of like you kind of wish you could build that bond with the real guy, the guy that gave birth to you. And I think that's something that a lot of folks don't contemplate is that even though, like in my case, it's adopted, but there's still like it's technically a stepdad scenario,
mhm.
similarities there. But it's like, guys, that is something that's not just with girls in the family. There guys I think not necessarily struggle, but it's definitely something that we suffer through where we love the bonding time with dad. And I'm not trying to go all sappy, but I'm saying there's definitely the iron sharpens iron and nurturing the next generation, especially with somebody that understands half of your good traits and bad traits that's inherited genetically into the next generation and how to hone and make it better. Do you ever feel like in that sense there wasn't that compatibility with your stepfather that you couldn't explain the emotions that were running through you at times?
Oh yeah. Um, like I said, I love my stepdad to death.
Mm-hmm.
He was there for me. Um, but again, at the same time, um, there was that connection that just wasn't there. I didn't feel like I could go to him
Mm,
with all of the issues that teenage boys struggle with
right.
because again there wasn't that connection there. Um, but yeah, he is an awesome guy, but
I
just
met him there at your wedding, I believe, right?
yeah, yeah,
Totally laid
yep, we
back
did.
guy. I absolutely love him. He has a great sense of humor.
Oh yeah, I like to say I get my sense of humor from him.
which is something good to merit off of. But and I think that's something that I've noticed within our society is that nobody's like a lot of people are always going after the guys in this generation, like, oh, they're all going after porn, they're all doing this, they're all doing it. But nobody's ever going after addressing what was the home like life for the new generation of men coming up? What are they going up against culturally wise that you didn't experience during your culture or decade of an era? And I think sometimes people don't appreciate folks like yourself and I, who instead of going down the alcoholic route or drug usage and whatnot, um, becoming an abusive officer. That's why I say I respect per individual, not the uniform, because that's something very, you have to understand the character. Like, what's the incentives
Oh,
for why you're,
absolutely.
yeah, because again, you do, whether true or not, if you want to argue the semantics of like a George Floyd scenario, sometimes you will get a scumbag, but then you have other ones that are generally trying to do it for the right reasons. Um, and I think that's something in our modern world where folks are always dumping it at the guy's door, as in, oh, you're just patriarchy, you're just this, you're just that. But nobody's ever saying, what do you go through on an average day? And the fact that you and I did not go the routes of becoming addicts or abusers, so like we see in Criminal Minds, a lot of people that go through a lot of trauma or have higher potency for going out and acting out against others because it's a repressed trauma. And so therefore they transfer that sometimes violently for sometimes decades on their victims because people don't
Oh
realize what they're going through on a mental state and they're constantly suppressing.
yeah, I'm a firm believer that the best way to fix society is to fix the family,
Absolutely.
because boys will be boys.
Yeah.
And what boys need is that father figure to sit them down and say, this is how you treat a woman.
Mm,
This is how you're supposed to act. This is how you, this is what, this is who you are. And kind of to quote Fiddler on the Roof, um, this is who you are, and this is what God expects of you as a
mhm,
man. If you don't have that, that's when you get into the abusers or toxic masculinity, or even down the route of masculinity being gone.
mhm,
Because if a single mother trying to raise a bunch of boys, my mom was a single mom for a few years trying to raise boys before she met my stepdad.
right, right,
Um, and without Nels being there, who knows where I would be,
mm,
because I wouldn't have had that father figure in my life, wouldn't have had the example of this is what a man is supposed to be.
right,
And so um, I personally owe everything to my stepdad, because he was the perfect example of what a man should be.
mhm,
And so, um, yeah, I think that's what is the problem with society today, is they're trying to get rid of the nuclear family, when in reality they should be trying to draw everybody back to the nuclear family and saying, let's get things right at home.
mm.
And then once things are right at home, things in society will start shaping up and um, gelling back together.
Right. And I think that's honestly that's one of the best enemy speaking wise. It's one of the best tactics ever to pull because as I call it, is like feminist Christianity. We start thinking with our emotions impulsively, and we're not thinking logically, rationally, strategically of how we're supposed to proceed with things in life. And it's like I've stated before, first it was slavery, then that was like no no. Then they went child labor and that was no no. And so then they finally were like, okay, what about feminism? And we'll double our
Yeah.
workforce overnight. And what did that do in turn? it did double their profits, but everybody's now struggling. And you see a lot of women like, I don't want to be a cat mom for the rest of my life. Where do I find a good man? And it's like, it's been so eroded and diluted that the whole dating scene, I mean, you were quite fortunate to find who you did when you did, and
Mhm.
where you did. I mean, to find somebody on a Christian campus. I mean,
Only girl I ever dated.
oh, so see, one and done. Lucky guy. I've been all over the map. It's been a lovely little roller coaster. But part of that was because of the trauma that I had from my dad. I was constantly always going through the mindset of like, I'm not worthy enough. This is the Now I'm in a healthy mindset. Everybody says you're obnoxious, you're narcissistic, you're arrogant, and I'm like, no, I just have standards now, and I
You're
don't.
the least
I
narcissistic
respect
person I
myself. I'm not the goofball that people came to know, and I think that's why a lot of people at PCC, they're all getting upset with me because I'm over here like, yeah, I don't play those games anymore. I've become my own man. And sometimes I
know.
think in today's society, now when you stand up for yourself, everybody points fingers at you as the bad guy, as opposed to saying that's what a person's supposed to be, is that you actually stand up for yourself and determine and decide who you are and what you want to be in life, what you want to contribute back.
Yeah. I was listening to a song that goes along these same lines earlier today, and this song came out when I was a kid. Probably, I want to say the song is at least 20 years old.
Oh, wow.
Um, and it's called Father Song by Jonah 33, and basically, uh, so the lyrics were, look around, the family is a dying breed, and broken homes become majority. The future is always born from example. So where are the men that God gave the responsibility to lead?
Mm,
Um,
mm,
and like I said, that song came out 20 plus years ago, and just looking at where society is today, it's gone. I think nobody would disagree with the fact that it's much worse than it was 20 plus years ago.
yeah.
And I think people need to step up and say, I will be the example. I will be what God wants me to be. I will be the man that God wants me to be.
Hmm.
And I will lead. I will raise my kids the way God wants me to. I will be the husband that God wants me to be. And I think once people start doing that, then they will start being an example to other people, and other people will start doing that. And it's a snowball effect.
Well, I think especially within Christianity, that's something I've always been pushing. And I'm like, why do we vote when we're supposed to be for the kingdom of heaven and our character and like, why are you guys doing that? That my dad doesn't do that. And it prompts people to be like, I want to do that. That looks normal. That looks way better than what I've seen and gone through in myself. And I was thinking
Mhm.
of Isaiah when you said that. Who shall I send, Lord? Send me.
Mhm.
And also in Joshua, as for me and my house, will serve the Lord. I think a large part of within our society, like I was going at PCC, and you know me, I had a huge gripe with a lot of the theology classes. I was always telling you, like, I hate these verses. I don't know where I'm ever going to be using these things. And now people are telling me on the comment sections, I should be a theology professor or pastor, and I'm over here going, no, because you knew me. Why would I want all the stress and aggravation that comes with the seminary frills and degrees? And I'm like, I can't be fake, and I can't do the man-made stuff. I've always had that maverick streak in me, where I was like, me, even when I was came to the church stuff there down there. I was bored half the time. I remember that one time I fell asleep up in the balcony. Do you remember that? I had like the hymnal or the book in my lap, and I felt like I was
It
falling over
fell
the
on the
ledge. I
floor
jumped
and you jumped to your feet.
Everyone's just looking at me, and I'm over here like, I'm sorry, I thought I was falling off the ledge. It's all cool.
Well, what gets me is this particular sermon happened after you left, but they actually got up there and preached a sermon on how they were not legalistic. I'm like, I feel like if you have to preach a sermon on this is why we're not legalistic, you probably are legalistic.
Dude,
You're just
they
so
were,
full of do's and don'ts, and this is the law, this is the
yes,
letter of the law, rather than putting the focus on Christ and where the focus should be. They're focused on you've got to go to church. You've got to get involved in this. You've got to get involved in that. You've got to do this. You have to do that. Don't do this. Don't do that. I can't tell you how many sermons were preached on you thou shalt not watch movies. Like, it's absurd the amount of
sorry, I was just
stuff.
thinking of the day when I left. I saw a clip. It was a Shoemaker, doctor, whatever, the president.
Yeah, he was the president, Dr. Shoemaker.
It was Shoemaker. Okay.
Yeah.
And I saw the clip where he says, I'm pleased to make the announcement that you can now have headphones on campus. And the whole room, auditorium, was starting to cheer and laugh. And I was like, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. That was the equivalent of what I was watching on the screen. And I'm over here going, figures you did it once I moved to the new country. Come on, man. This is stupid.
Yeah, they love headphones. They've actually changed um, a lot of their policies since both of us left. Um,
It's not fair.
one of Megan's friends is still works down there, and apparently they just recently changed the girls must wear skirts policy.
So that they don't have to?
They don't have to anymore. Last
Oh,
I heard.
no, they're going way secular now. Can people touch hands now?
What's that?
Can you touch hands now of the opposite gender?
No,
Oh, of course not. Of course not.
of course not. Touching leads to pregnancy. Gosh.
And the PCC-ites. Oh, gosh, dude. Like, it was ridiculous. I remember, the bed tents weren't allowed.
Which is funny because Megan became an RA, and she was involved, and she got to sit in some of the student life meetings where they're like, oh, they had a bed tent, and the student life person that took over after Lefevre's left was just like, well, what is a bed tent? It's like, where's that in the rules? Like,
Where to pull the
there's nothing
Obama.
in the rules that says you can't have a bed tent.
Sorry, Clinton.
Like,
I love it. I love it. What is? Well, define that. But dude, like,
Dr. Phillips was the best thing that happened to student life. He took over for Lefevre's, and it became less of a student life is out to get you, and more of a student life is there to help and assist you.
the way it
So,
should be.
and you didn't have people like
Nurzak. Do you remember? Do you remember when he came out with this huge apology to the whole day room, and he says, "If you have any recommendations for ways that I could improve my character or do things and how I handle the floor, write it on a 3x5 card and put it under my door, and I'll take it under consideration." And that one guy shoots up his thing. He says, "Can we do it on like a 5x7?" I'm like, dude, not the time.
He was never my RA, so
No, so you might not have been there for that, but somebody was on their floor, and I looked at them, and I was like, poor Murzak. Poor Murzak. I hated his guts, but that was just mean. He just broke it up with his girl because she was saying you're too strict, and she broke up for him for that. From what I was hearing stories about.
remember when your roommate walked up to you, just like, dude, Are you and Stokes gay?
There were a lot of those moments, dude, and I love playing it off where I'm like, oh, totally. Because we're the reasons we can't have bed tents. And he was like, what? Was that Josh Easterday? My freshman,
Yeah.
my freshie?
Yep. It was Easter Day.
Because I remember.
Apparently his collegian called him Toad.
Yes, yeah. He kept putting his feet.
He's the one you lit on fire.
Yes. So, folks, just let me give context. He kept putting his foot dangling over the bed when I was studying, and I said, "You got to stop doing that, man, because this." It says when I'm studying and I see something dangling, it distracts me. So I said, "You got to keep your feet in your side of the bed, or go and sit by the desk and study." And he wouldn't listen to me, so I literally just kept reading, and then I turned on a little lighter until a little hot foot happened, and he's like, "Oh!" And he's like, "You burned a hole through my sock," and I said, "Freshie, what did I tell you? Keep your feet out of my face." I sound a lot worse than I was. It wasn't that bad. But I like. Didn't we share a room for a little bit during the summer months?
Nope.
No.
I always tried to get you in my room, but you always roomed with I can't remember his first name, but his last name was White.
Yeah, James White the third.
James. That's yeah.
That was the other one that everybody's like, dude. No, they were supposed to put 3 to 4 people in per room, but they always kept it just 3 to ours for Grady Foster, White, and myself because we were literally labeled the crazy room. So they literally put the guest on campus and the guys across the room who already had 4 people, and they put him on the floor as opposed to putting him in our room where we had a vacant bed because they didn't want to give the campus that bad of a reputation.
Grady was fine, but
Grady looked like a lot.
James was weird.
Do you remember when they kidnapped James?
No.
So Grady,
What happened?
I was in the shower, and I'm hearing a whole hurdle. This is right before they put locks on the doors, by the way. Yeah. And I'm hearing a whole skaggle of guys coming into the room, and I said, "What's going on out there?" And all of a sudden, I hear, boom! Like it shook the whole bedroom and into the bathroom. I was like, "Okay, that's it. I'm coming out there. What is going on?" So I'm like, throwing on a pair of underwear, putting a towel about myself. I rip open the door just in time to see the main door close and slam shut. And I go look around the corner. I'm like, "What the heck?" And I see James's ramen noodle just sitting there on the desk, still sizzling. And I look over at the bed, and Grady's just like this. Like there was at least 20-something guys in here. So I rip open the door. I look down the hall just in time to see James White in his underwear with handcuffs on being tossed into the elevator. And I'm like, what the heck is going on right now? So the next day, and I'm not sure if you guys knew this or if we talked about it afterwards, the next day they had a hall meeting on all the halls. And they said nobody's supposed to go downstairs into the lobby area in their underwear. Because James hopped out saying, "Help me, help me, help me," and then he hopped back into the elevator. Dude, there was so much drama that happened on our floor. And then when Merzak stole my suitcase to put Charles Sprinkles.
I was about to ask you if you remembered Sprinkle.
Yes, dude, I remember because just the night before I had all my contraband DVDs in that suitcase, and I had moved it from that one into the next one. I came in and I was coming back from dinner or something like that, and my suitcase was all the content in it was dumped out except the one where I had the DVD. I was like, "Oh shoot, who ratted me out? Like this is so bad." And I'm running around. I'm saying, "Who see my?" And then eventually I see Sprinkles. He's coming and he's like rubbing his head and he's dragging my suitcase behind him. I said, "Dude, what are you doing with my suitcase?" I said, "I thought I was just getting ratted out to Merzak and I was going to be having to see Student Life and all that." And he goes, "No, but Merzak was the one that took it." I'm like, "What?" He said he didn't believe the story the other day where you said you guys put me inside the suitcase, and so he wanted to put me in it and roll me down the stairs. I was like, "Are you anybody's suitcase? But you had to grab mine that might have had the contraband?" Dude. Yes, I remember him very well. I remember particularly where he went up behind the girl in the cafeteria because he thought he knew her, and he came up from behind and gave her a hug, and then she turned around and he was like, "Oh, I am so sorry," and he started running away. And he ran into one of the pillars. You know how they had the pillar with the numbers in the cafeteria? He smacked right dab into it. I was like, "Oh, the poor guy." Because I saw that part. I didn't see him give the hug, but I saw him walk right into it. I was like, "Oh, that had to hurt." Dude.
Remember Jesse?
Jesse, the one that had the laugh?
No, female.
That's what I'm saying. The one that had the laugh that I kind of showed her that was... She actually improved her laugh because of my request. Oh, I remember. I remember this story. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. This is a moment on my part.
I don't remember the full story of what you were talking about, but I think it was you, me, Jesse, and somebody else are sitting down to lunch, and you're telling a story about another girl that you were talking to who was a little on the heavier side.
Yes.
And you're just like, and so she was a little bit fat, and then you turn to Jesse, you're like, not you. And then continue your story. We're all just looking at you like, dude, you just called her fat. You're like, no. I just made sure that she knew I wasn't calling her fat.
Because I swear, dude, I didn't mean to be rude, but I swore she was like zeroing in her eyes at me as if she was suspecting she was the person about the story, and I just wanted to clarify, not you. And then like everybody just, I'm like, what'd I do? What'd I say? Totally backfired, dude. And I remember another time it was with Hansel. And I was talking about Holly, and I was laughing because the girl he married looks just like a doppelganger of Holly. I was like, well, you definitely have a particular type. But at the time, I said, when you say you know Holly, do you mean that biblically? Yes. No! Dude, the guys at the table were both looking at each other like...
I forgot you would say stuff like that.
Dude, what was the one where what's his name? The guy that was from Spain.
Oh, Benji,
yes. And remember when we were in we weren't in that class, but we were in a history class. He did a whole post on it. We were in history class, and he says, "Who's familiar here with Spain?" Like everybody's raising their hand. Who's familiar with this? And who's familiar with the Spanish Armada? Everybody like raises their hand. He's like, "Oh, that wasn't the best time for the Spanish in history." And he just felt like, and I looked over and I was like, remember when he botched my assassination attempt?
Oh, I think so.
We were walking, and I was gonna go like run up and pretend to stab somebody with like a pen or something like that. It was all pretend, but I was going all Assassin's Creed, running through the crowd. And for some reason, like I'm bolting, and as I'm in mid jump, I can't remember if it was. I think it was White, my roommate, or was it Grady?
It may have been Grady.
It might have been Grady because I think it might have been Grady. So I was gonna jump up and go whoa, like right in the side into the neck, and then like dash off. And I don't know where he came from, but Benji just collided into me, and I immediately just went into the grass, and I was like, "What is wrong with you?" Dude, that ticked me off so much. I remember that. Anyways, about Contraband. We used to watch a lot. We used to watch a lot of movies. And a couple of favorite shows. I know you and I like Daredevil. It's still one of my top 5. Chuck, and then we were also watching the show. Yeah, we were watching the show Lost, and I remember we were having a disagreement over who our favorite character was. Because
we still have that disagreement. I don't think we'll ever agree.
Which is what I'm gonna like write down, because the minute I saw Jack from the show Lost, if you guys want to keep up with what we're talking about, a lot of people saw the show, so you probably know what we're talking about. If you don't, go watch it. The first scene I saw him, I was like, I don't like him. I don't like his face. I don't like his persona. I don't like he always has to be the hero complex. It's just sick. The minute I saw Locke on screen, I saw him get up. He looked at his feet. Then I was like, "There's something to this guy." And I suspected on day one that he wasn't able to walk. And we were watching this thing, and we eventually started talking about our favorite characters in the show. And he was like, "Well, I like Jack," and I'm over here like, how could you possibly like? But that's what I liked about the show is that, as you said, not everybody's going to agree, but we can argue
Mhm.
the pros and cons per individual. Do you want to
Oh,
elaborate as to
absolutely.
why you liked that particular character in the show?
It honestly, I related to him a lot more than John Locke or anybody else in the show. Mainly because he had those dad issues where
Fair.
his dad was there but not there at the same time, and just the struggles that he dealt with throughout the course of the show I related to a lot more than the egotistical John
Egotistical. I thought of it the complete
Locke.
opposite, which is what I think is
Locke
something.
was always out for himself. Like throughout the course of the entire show, he never did one thing for the group. It was always to better himself and get to his own agenda.
Or what he was getting from the island and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What I liked about Locke, I mean, granted, he's named after a philosopher, so there's a reason why they're throwing that stuff in there. But
What was
what I liked about him is that he had this wonder about him. Like we're going
Mhm.
through crap, but there's also like this little bit of sense of wonderment of appreciating what we are experiencing right now on the island. And I think
Yeah.
between him and Sawyer was kind of where I found my niche. Is like there's the
I
wonderment,
love
but there's
Sawyer.
oh yeah. But Sawyer was the other half where I was like, I'm not. A lot of people always misunderstand me, but it's like if you understood the flashbacks, you would understand why I am the way I am now. And I think when their two character story collided with, oh, the con man that ruined,
Mhm.
my mom is the same guy that was your dad. I think that was a very special. I mean, it was a special episode entirely of the series, but for me, it was a little bit of a, oh, so there is a little bit of a similarity link here that connects these
Mhm.
two aspects. And I like that about the show is that it's like you're not always 100% with per character, but there are elements you draw from and that you can see and reflect that you see within yourself in your own life.
Oh, absolutely. And I was actually reading an article just recently, and by recently, I mean within the past couple of years, um, about how they purposely made the characters that way. Like, like John Locke was named John Locke because of
Philosopher.
the philosopher back in the day.
Right.
Um, uh, I can't remember for sure what his personality was equated with, but it had to do with Locke and his laws of I for the life of me I cannot remember what John Locke wrote about. But
It's like I don't really care about all that. I just, yeah.
but he was he was basically the personification of John Locke's writing.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the different characters, that's what they were. They were personifications of emotions, or basically they were built to be relatable.
Right. Right. They were projection avatars in a ensemble cast, and that's what I liked because I think I had like the top six. It was like Locke, Sawyer, Saeed, of course, except when they started butchering his character. I liked what's his
Every
name? John
everybody
Connor?
loves Hurley.
Oh yeah, Early's a given. And what was
I
it?
think
Doc Lennis,
Hurley.
the
I think
little short guy that they found out in the woods. Linus, Benjamin Linus.
Oh, you liked Linus.
I know everybody's like, "Why do you like Cersei? Why do you like Linus?" I'm like, "Listen, I have a thing.
See,
I can fix
see,
them."
see, you. Did you ever watch How I Met Your Mother?
No, I've seen clips here and there though with Barney and
Uh,
whatnot.
you are Barney Stinson. Not
I think that's
not
fair. I like Suits.
not the womanizing aspect of him.
No, I meant
But
the dressing up part. Yeah.
but there's an episode of How I Met Your Mother where they're talking to Barney and they're talking about the Karate Kid
Yeah.
and he's just like, "Oh yeah, he's like I loved the Karate Kid. I
Yeah.
was very upset when the hero got beaten by that upstart nobody at the end of the movie." And they're just like, "What are you talking about?" He's just like, "Yeah, you know, the Karate Kid." And he was a fan of the villain of the
Yes.
movie.
Yes.
And I'm like, that's you. Liking Benjamin Linus, John Locke, Cersei Lannister. I mean, please, come on.
I have such horrible taste. What can I say? I can
Tyrion
relate.
Lannister, on the other hand, love that dude.
Yes,
Absolutely love that dude.
a lot of people relate to that because it's not necessarily that we're small, but it's like sometimes we feel really small. We feel degraded. We feel like nobody gives a crap about us and our families.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so when you get this iconic character that is going through struggle, but somehow is persevered and he's still like this little diamond in the rough, it's something where everybody just gravitates towards. And I think that's a reason why I liked him. And I also like shows where the variables of somebody could off you at any given time. It kind of puts the stakes on it. You're just like, literally, anybody could lose their head at any second. This is a little dark.
Speaking of Game of Thrones, one of my favorite things about Game of Thrones is the fact that your favorite character could die at any time.
Yes.
Like Sean Bean, his thing is he's known for being the character that everybody kills off.
Right.
And the only reason he signed up to do Game of Thrones was because he was the main character. He's like, they're not going to kill off the main character. Season 1, he's dead.
He's reading the script. He's like, "Oh, hold up! I didn't quite finish the script you gave me. Is this accurate? Or is this a prank? No, it's real. Huh? Yeah.
There's just something about the humanity of those shows where, yes, you may be the main character, but good luck.
Right. And I think that's something where I really was appreciating that genre, and I was kind of writing in my stuff like that. Like, I think when I was like, I don't know, 14, 15, I even wrote something where I said, don't get attached to any character because anytime they could die. I mean, I wouldn't do that now, but I was just laughing because I was over here like, that was one thing I was really getting irked about with a lot of genres is where they were over here going, oh, the hero always wins. And I really, you know me, I really hated Superman. I still hate Superman. I literally would shave my head bald just so I could kill him in Lex Luthor fashion. And it's like, this is the one canon episode where he does not come back. He's gone.
I am probably Superman's biggest hater besides you.
Well, dude, it's because my hero has no flaws. He has nothing he has to overcome.
He's so overpowered.
Yes.
It's like they threw every single superpower imaginable into a blender and out came Superman.
Right. And that's kind of what their intent was.
He's got everything. It's just like, well, that's not how a superhero works.
Right.
One of my favorite set of superheroes is the X-Men. And each person in that franchise has one power. That is it. And everything else stems from that one power, but they just have that one power. Some people, it could be regeneration. Other people, it could be super intelligence. But it's not barfing up of powers like Superman is.
Right, and that's what I liked about Homelander. I know everybody gets mad because I was over here like, yes,
of course you like Homelander,
huh?
I said, of course you like Homelander.
I know dude. I just noticed that. I really always like the baddies, and I think part of it is, as a writer, I really like getting to the core of what makes everybody hate this particular person, but also the humanity aspect of what got this particular person to get this sick and depraved, where they justify their actions. Where on an outward scale, everybody's admiring them, but on an inward scale, you're like, you're kind of messed up. Do you need a hug?
I love the backstory for Homelander. Like
Yes.
I hate him as a character. I
Yes,
think he's a
absolutely.
very despicable person, but at the same time, nature versus nurture, he definitely did not get that nurturing that we were talking about earlier
Right. Right.
of a father figure. He was basically a lab experiment
Mm-hmm.
that had no physical contact with people, no love and affection his entire life. Of course, he's going to turn into a psychopath.
Mm-hmm.
Like he has no, um, he was
Moral
given
compass.
no chance,
Right.
no shot.
And that's what I liked is like, if you're going to be a hero, I also love that they played on the trope that you literally can become
Mhm.
pretty dark, or you literally are. Sometimes you can be nice, but then there's other times where you're like, you have a little bit of a weird side, or you have a little bit of this kink side. Why? Because nobody's able to relate on a mentality of where you're at in this world. Now, granted, I understand a
Yeah.
lot of it is programming to get us all into this like Mark of the Beast thing, like, oh, I could become like an avatar and just get this chip thing and fly around with transhumanism and stuff. But for me, I'm over here just thinking, because I like the steampunk aspect. We're turning things
Mhm.
into robots, but it wasn't necessarily as in, whatever they're planning with their future. But it was more of a mournful sense of, this is really where we've gotten to. Like, is a machine that wants to have connection and feeling, but the best they can do is like, you're stuck in a metallic thing with your powers or your enhanced abilities. But it's like, no, it's kind of sad. Like, this is what we're putting you on a shelf with. It's like, Ultron had it right. Anyways, Team Ultron, and I think that's another reason. Particularly, I really liked Daredevil. The psychology of that, and I'm really mad that even on YouTube, I don't see more people doing episode breakdowns on this, of like the character, this thing, that thing, of the way they wrote Wilson Fisk, where you have this dark, lurking, looming figure that's just like our real elites in power today. They keep the names out of the media, but when they do show up, they try to paint them as these heroes. And you have the real people, like, you're arguing against the narrative of like 2020 or whatever. You're standing up, you're saying, well, what about this? I'm a centrist. And you have this person who's being bombasted as the bad guy,
Mhm.
but they're struggling with the inner turmoil. And I think the one scene that both you and I were talking about was when when he finally came together with the Punisher, and they were having that philosophy debate on top of the roof. He had them all chained up to the chimney thing, and he was arguing something like, when I put somebody down, they stay down, whereas you always just put them in jail and they come right back out and do the same thing once they get back out. And I think I really liked the, what do you call it, the anti-hero versus the, I'm trying
Mhm.
to be a hero, but it's
Yeah.
really hard to define, because it's like an origin story, and it's raw, and in the fight scenes you felt like you were experiencing the blows. It wasn't just like, oh, look, splashy, flashy. Like, I hate what they did to my boy Wilson Fisk in Hawkeye. I'm not sure if you saw that series. It came around Christmas or
Yeah.
something. Oh,
I
it was, dude, I was like, from compared to the show, you're making him look like he's Hulk that can just throw anything around. Like, no, it's Baby Man gone mad. He's gonna punch something. Get out of the way.
like the thing I loved most about Daredevil was it was one of the first shows that I saw where they actually let the villains be villains.
Yes.
A lot of, and this is one of the series of shows that I absolutely love is the Arrowverse,
Mm-hmm.
where they started off with a lot of these really very bad, nasty people getting locked away or killed, depending on which show you're watching. But the thing that drug it so far downhill towards the end is the villains stopped being villains. The villains of the episode, they no longer fought with the villains at the end. They had a conversation with them and let them know, hey, you're just misunderstood. And I'm like, no, villains are villains. They're
Right.
not, they can't be rehabilitated necessarily. Not saying you shouldn't necessarily try to rehabilitate, but there's just once you reach a certain point, like Wilson Fisk
Yeah.
and Daredevil, zero shot of rehabilitation.
Right.
Zero shot. Dude smashed a guy's head open with a car door just because he offended him.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a villain.
Yes.
Um,
But
and
they also showed
to the,
his humanity side. It wasn't just like you're solely
Mhm.
a villain. I'm just black and white. It was
yeah,
trying to adapt and connect into society. But there's always this little bit of a now you're causing a problem because I'm trying to be normal.
hmm yeah, absolutely. But no, a lot of the issues with society, in my opinion, stems down to this: everybody needs to be rehabilitated and force fed back into society. No, some people cannot be rehabilitated.
Right. Right.
Um, one of there's in a couple of my classes in college, took a couple of criminal research classes and a couple of criminal psychology classes.
Mm-hmm.
And in those classes, there was a guy, they showed some videos from this guy. Can't for the life of me cannot remember his name, but he's a famous psychologist that studies the minds of serial killers, and he'll like do a scan of their brains before they're killed, and you'll see there's a certain part of their brain that is blacked out. Um, no, um, no activity going on in that section of the brain. And if you look at a scan, if you show them side by side, a normal person who's not a psychopathic serial killer, the that portion of their brain is still lit up like a Christmas tree. And so a lot of people think that part of part of the brain is what deals with your empathy and how you emotionally connect with people.
Right.
And so if that portion of your brain isn't functioning or isn't working, no amount of rehabilitation is going to get it working again.
Right. And I think that's what a lot of folks don't seem to realize because I wasn't saying that Christ can't redeem anybody. What I was saying after 2020, I think I'm seeing a lot of folks, especially especially some Christians, they're like, well, don't dig into a cult because because they're all afraid if you look into it, you're going to become it, and it's just like not necessarily. As opposed to being afraid of something that you know nothing about, it's enough to be aware of it for something like that. Where you're over here going, this thing exists. It doesn't mean I'm becoming it. It means I want to know a little bit about it. So if I ever confront it or I see it in my world, that I can point a finger and say that's bad. That's not something I'm supposed to gravitate towards. Like it says Ephesians 5:11. Don't have no parts of fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. And I think a lot of folks are scared to confront the fact that, as I said, after 2020, I think most people, if they're not waking up to all these other false flags or the events that are going on in our world, they're just going to go further and further asleep. Normies, NPCs don't want to know, don't really care. Whereas there's others of us that are going, yeah, that's a bit of a red flag. I'm going to put a pin note on that because it's enough for me to go, I don't think most people want to wake up. I think they enjoy being asleep and thinking that someone else is going to go save the day for them. Because being the hero, putting on the costume, taking on that mantle, it's way too much work. But some people actually are over here saying, all right, fine, I'll take the blows. I'll take the hit. Like the Punisher when he was on trial. I'm glad I did. And you got some people that are over here like, yeah, and then you got other people that are like, dude, you're literally psychotic. You got that little part in your brain that's not working, and I don't agree with anything that you're saying. But yeah, I do like your takeaway. Do you remember the scene where Daredevil was patching up his dad as a kid, and he says, "Take a swig of this." It was after one of the fights. He says, "Hey, take a little sip."
I think so. I think that was like one of the first couple episodes, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
He
I
gives
think
it to him, and he's like, "Ooh, it's bitter." He's like, "Swallow it. You're gonna need it to do what you're gonna do on my face to patch it up and all that." And then I remember as well, they had Wilson Fisk as a kid, and his dad gave him a drink, and he goes, "Ugh," and he spits it out. And that particular thing, I mean, it wasn't the same episode, but it was the same thing where both of them were given alcohol, and Daredevil said, "Grin and bear it, stuff it down. That I'm gonna suffer, struggle through." Whereas Wilson Fisk was like, "No, I refuse this," and angry baby man, and it was something where it was like the psychology of that show really makes me think. I know some people's like, it's so slow, it's so boring, it's I don't know, and I'm over here like, that's what I actually want, is a show that makes me think, not just watch for the sake of being entertained, or mindless violence. Was there violence? Yes, but it was like there's a psychology behind what's going on.
There's a reason to the violence. It wasn't just violence for violence sake.
Right. And again, it wasn't just villain doing villainy thing. It was like, okay, you killed my number one guy. Now let's see what I can do to you, or counterpoint. And it's a constant game of chess. I like that about the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other show that we were watching, I believe you saw Vikings, right?
Nope.
You never saw Vikings?
I saw maybe one episode of Vikings.
I thought we were just about to dig into that when I was down there with you. Okay.
No, I think it's on Netflix, and I swore off of Netflix, and so
I understand.
that's a rabbit hole all on its own.
It's
huge rabbit hole.
But there was a scene in there where the Viking King and the King of the England, call it what you will at the time, they're both arguing, saying, "Are you corrupt?" "Yeah, I'm corrupt." And then eventually, towards the very end, he's like, "I'm gonna have to execute you tomorrow, and my people are expecting this." And they're both getting drunk, and one's saying, "Well, you're gonna go to heaven where the streets are made of gold." La 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 la. And he's making fun of it, and the other one says, "Well, you believe in Valhalla, where you all get up the next day and you kill each other and you do this again and again and again." And again, some of those, I know we give Hollywood a lot of crap, and most of it is well deserved. It's merited. But once in a while, there's scenes like that literally make me go, "This is the thing we need to do more in our society, is talk about what we watched or what we're learning." Have these confrontational talks, because we're mindlessly consuming, but we're never having conversations of what we see. And that goes with our society as well. Do you feel that?
Oh yeah. I'm a firm believer in friendly debates. Like even when I was a teenager going to summer camp, rather than getting involved in a bunch of the activities that were going on, me and one of my friends would sit down and discuss a topic that we disagreed with each other on, and just have a nice friendly debate where at the end of the day we're still friends.
Right.
We're not ripping each other apart, calling each other names. We're giving points, we're giving counterpoints. We're like, this is what I believe, this is why I believe that.
Right.
And at the end of the day, like I said, we're still friends. We're not walking away from that encounter being like, "Oh, I hate that guy. I can't believe that he disagreed." Blah, blah, blah. No, it's okay. It's okay to have disagreements. Right. It's okay to be like, "I'm on Team Block. I'm on Team Jack." Like, that is fine.
Right.
Society is, especially today, is at the point where you can't have a friendly debate with people. You sit down, you say, "Hey, I disagree with you. Here's why I disagree with you." And then they're just like, "Oh, you're being racist," or "Oh no, you're being sexist," or it's like, no.
I'm not
No,
disagreeing
I'm
with
not
you.
sexist. I'm old fashioned, which is still sexist.
Like, I'm not disagreeing with you because of the color of your skin
Mm-hmm.
or because of your gender or because of whatever. I'm disagreeing with your argument
Mm-hmm.
and the philosophy that you claim to follow or the philosophy that you claim to believe in. I disagree with that. This is
Mm-hmm.
my philosophy. This is what I believe. And you can't really have those discussions with people anymore because people just get so gosh darn offended. It's
Yeah.
like you say,
You try to sit down with somebody. I'm sure you've experienced this, especially with a lot of the podcasting that you do,
Mm-hmm.
where you sit down to have a conversation with somebody and you say, I disagree with you, and then they just start getting mad and yelling and screaming at you. Um,
Yeah,
like you,
there was one where I was over here talking with the guy. I couldn't air the episode. It's like, you think you're God and the fish is God, and if you squish the bug, the bug is God too. Like, dude, I mind-bogglingly was like frying my brains out trying to rationalize, like, so if you blame God for everything, or then you say everything that God doesn't exist, so it's like we're just recyclables. Is what you're telling me? Like, it just, like,
Mhm,
yes, I was a respectful debate, but at the same time, I'm over here going, I don't know if I want to put that out there, because then I am compliant with a semi endorsement. I would feel
oh,
of
absolutely.
well, endorsement in the sense that
Yeah.
somebody's going to be like, well, I think, and again, I guess freedom of speech, but there's also things where I'm over here like, dude, to deny that there isn't a God, a starting point, a as I said
Mhm,
to folks, you can't say nothing comes from nothing, because then you're saying you are the equivalent of zero. And we know in math that means nothing. To say that
mhm,
we start from nothing is literally the dumbest thing ever. You need a number as a starting point. And to
mhm.
deny number one, you're already a fool, as the Bible says. He is a fool. It says,
Yeah.
that there is no God. And or to say that you are somehow God reincarnated, it's something, dude, where I'm like, I need to understand why you believe the thing you believe, but if you don't even have a semi argument for the Bible or an explanation of where is step one, and you just kind of brush over that, I have a hard time endorsing your work, because, as I said
Mhm,
to folks, I have another buddy, Manny, and I was saying, like, even if you were drunk and incapacitated, I'd still want you to be my representative lawyer. Why? Because you're articulate, you still know how to think, and you're very smart about a variety of topics.
mhm,
Even though you're extreme liberal, you at least have an argument as to where you're coming from, and it's not solely based on political, like, oh, this is my politics. It's like you actually are coming from it like, this is historically, this is something I saw, this is why I've come to the conclusion with this, and this is why I'm absolutely opposed with this side of liberalism. And so, and I don't think, as you were just laying out, I love the way you phrase that, because that is like the Socratic method. Why do you believe what you believe?
mhm.
Because a lot of people just want a microwave philosophy. They'll take like a John Locke. They're just
Yeah.
like, well, John Locke would say this. What do you think? And I see a lot of people do that in conservative movements. Well, Ben Shapiro says this. What do you think about it? Can you take Ben Shapiro out
Oh,
of your life
that
for three months and think for yourself on a topic?
that is one of my absolute favorite questions to ask people,
Why?
because especially at PCC, you have a lot of the regurgitated, well, this
Yes.
is what I was taught in Bible class. This is what I was taught. This is what Mr. So and so thinks. It's like, okay, well, my question for you then is, what do you think? What do
Yes.
you believe? Why do you believe that? And a lot of people, especially at
Close enough.
PCC, especially at PCC, you have all those people who are just like, this is mommy and daddy's faith.
Yes.
My mommy taught me, it's like, okay, so what's your opinion?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want to hear what mommy and daddy think. That's a conversation for when you're 5 years old.
Yes.
You are now a grown adult going to college. You have to have your own beliefs.
Hmm.
And it irritates me to no end all these people who are just like, well, so and so said this. It's like, I don't want, I don't care about so and so. I don't know so and so.
Right.
So and
Right.
so has zero impact on my life whatsoever.
Hmm.
I care about you. I want to know what you think. Um, One of my absolute favorite people to listen to is Charlie Kirk. I don't know if you
Mm.
know who that is.
Oh, unfortunately, yes.
Um,
I'd be careful with him. He's got Kenneth Copeland boots at his events. If you know who that guy is, I'd be very worried.
I have no idea who that is.
You
Um,
just type
but
it in, look up some of his sermons. He's definitely demonically possessed.
okay.
Yeah,
But
creepy guy.
I like how he goes to colleges and he will um, have people come up to the microphone and they'll start going on tangent or a tirade. He's like, hold up. You're upset with me. Why are you upset with me? And they're like, well, because of the things you say. He's like, okay, what things? Like specifically, give me specific examples of what you disagree with.
Hmm.
He's like, we cannot have a conversation starting with, well, I disagree with you.
I'm just
Like,
against
okay,
it. Yeah.
like, okay, well, what specifically do you disagree on? Like, I disagree with you gives zero room to have a conversation.
Right.
It's like going up to somebody and trying to have a conversation with them, and all they're doing is one word answers. That gives me nothing to converse with. Like, it's like, how are you doing today? Okay. Like, well, what am I supposed to do with that?
Right.
Like,
Right.
I like how I may not necessarily agree with everything that he says, everything that he does,
Right. Right. Right.
but
But the articulation
but
of that particular sentiment, I got you.
it's how he goes about doing it
Right.
and trying to get people to think instead of just being the collective sheep.
Hmm.
He's just like, think for yourself. What what is it that you believe? What is it that you are disagreeing with me on specifically? And a lot of the times those people just walk away because they don't have an answer.
Right.
They don't think for themselves. They
I
just
don't know why I
regurgitate
disagree.
information.
Right. And I think, as I was saying, because a lot of stuff that I do, and I let somebody said on another show I was doing with him. He says I have all the complaints nicely organized in the trash, so keep them coming. And I was over here like, yeah, because a lot of NPCs, I think demons tend to like to talk through people that aren't really thinking for themselves because they have such a grip on how they react emotionally on things that they're not actually thinking logically or spiritually of how to process something. And again, I was liking a lot what I was seeing at Turning Point, and then there was other stuff where I was, because I've been to 2 or 3 of their events, and then there
Yeah.
was other aspects where I was going recently. I think it was earlier this year. Somebody asked him, he says, "Well, what's your thoughts? Like you're always saying America first, but then like, what's your thoughts on the USS Liberty incident?" He's like, "Don't throw anti-Semitic conspiracy theories at our events. That is not allowed." And then when you look at somebody played all the reels of history that are going with this, it's like, well, Charlie, why are we shutting up? Why are we suddenly playing the identity politics game? And again, that's my biggest thing. This particular group of people, they weren't kicked out solely because of their ethnicity. They were picked out for an ideology. And this is where, again, I don't give a crap about skin color.
Oh, same
But,
here.
but like we were just saying with that school, that was I think you worded it perfectly. I was really irritated where I'm over here like, how come I know more than a lot of the history professors here? How come everybody I'm sitting with in this Bible class can't seem to be asking questions outside of the box of their theology? Like, this is
Mhm.
what I know, this is what I believe. I'm here to get my MRS or whatever degree and then go out with my merry way. I'm over here like, I think there used to be, to an extent, because I know a lot of colleges are compromised, but there used to be a fair amount where it was saying, okay, don't just read the text. What is the character going through? What is the
Mhm.
subtext of the culture or the author that wrote this particular thing? And I think I was talking to my buddy as we were driving today. We were going to lunch, and I said to him, it's kind of like when you're trying to understand God or you're trying to understand scripture, the word, it's like talking to the curator at the museum. And the curator is saying, yes, looks like the average painting, but this is the struggle that this person was going through at this time in their life. This was made during this era, and the war could have destroyed it, but it didn't. Blah, blah, blah. And you start understanding and appreciating everything and the moments that were there to help create something that you're observing right now. And I think to an extent, a lot of folks, they're impulsively arguing on things they don't have any basis on. They're going off of cat reels and cooking things on TikTok. And whereas somebody like myself, I got banned, and I still don't know why. They never told me why I got banned off TikTok. So, and why? Because oh yeah,
You were
dude, they
banned
kicked me
on
out, and
TikTok.
I'm still trying to figure. I keep watching and watching. I said I didn't bash this group. I never said I hate you. I never said any. I'm looking at community standards. I'm like, yeah, that's nothing's there. I said the best I did was a Gollum impression. Maybe it was bad. I rate you that, but seriously. But you know what I'm saying? And when you put real stuff on somebody's plate, or you give them a book, they're like, "Oh, I ain't got time for that," or they just recycle headlines. I had a mentor that was recycling something about what's going on in the Middle East. He says, "Well, I heard they're very pampered people, and all that other Middle Eastern countries don't want them." And I'm like, "You're literally recycling RFK to a T with what you just said." Well, like my aunt, she was saying she was watching something with Newsom and saying like, you know, the AR-15 is like a Swiss Army rifle. It's got all this gadgets and that thing and this and that and that. And I'm like, where the heck did you get that? And then later on, I saw that real clip and I was like, oh, okay, so you're just recycling phrases, but you have no inner dialogue for yourself. Oh gosh, I like talking with you. It's getting a lot of reminiscing going on. So let's change pace here. What do you like about the part of the country that you live in? Is it solely because family's there, or is there something that you really appreciate with the culture, environment, the uh, look of the scenery?
Um, I like the fact the family's up here.
Hmm,
We moved up here because her family was up here, and she wanted to be, in case we had kids, she wanted to be closer to where her family was.
fair.
And then my family just moved up here as well.
Idaho, correct?
It's yeah,
Just for folks who are listening.
yeah. I live in Idaho. Um, yeah. Um, but at the same time, the scenery up here is gorgeous. Um, I get to I get to look out my window and I see mountains everywhere.
Nice.
I grew up in the mountains. Like um
It shows.
I literally I literally grew up 2.5 miles up a mountain. That's where I was born and raised. And
Wow.
so when I went down to Florida, I hated it because yes,
Yeah.
Florida looks beautiful. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing about Florida that's not beautiful from what I've seen of it. But there's no mountain. And I was born and raised in the mountains, so I have to have mountains. And
Mm-hmm.
so I look out my window with a cup of coffee and I just see mountain ranges all around me. Absolutely gorgeous. Especially during the winter when they're covered with snow.
Mm.
Just absolutely beautiful area up here. Um, but at the same time, the um, you can get beautiful scenery anywhere. The thing I love most about Idaho is how conservative it is.
Okay.
Um, you don't when all the George Floyd riots were happening and people were burning cities down and rioting in the streets, they came up here to do the same thing, and the local people got out their firearms, stood in the streets, not aiming their guns at anybody, just holding their guns, just saying, if you want to protest, feel free to protest. Do not riot. and we didn't have a single riot in this area. When back when every single other major city was having a huge riot going on, we didn't have a single one.
Nice.
And I love the fact that out here we can exercise our Second Amendment rights. We can exercise our freedom of speech where we can have a disagreement with people. I have some liberal friends who are up here who I'm super conservative. They're not. We have a disagreement. We talk it over and we move on.
Mm.
You can have those conversations down here, up here where I'm at, as opposed to a place like California or even over in Washington, where you try to have that conversation with somebody and you just can't because the environment of those states are just so far liberal that there's just no way to have that conversation because it's so ingrained in them. If somebody disagrees with you, they're automatically in the wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no way, there's no basis because, like you said, everybody's just regurgitating what they've been told.
Right.
Whereas up in Idaho, at least in my experience, everybody that I've had the opportunity to talk to or commune with have that foundation of this is what I believe. This is why I believe this. Let's have a conversation.
Fair. Fair. So, conservative as in values or conservative as in party?
Both.
Oh,
Conservative.
okay. No, because that's something I've been finding
Well,
is when I've said I'm not for either side, and I'm digging more into the origins of our country and
right.
understanding the occult, and it's making me go, I can't. I like I say, I have conservative sentiments, libertarian sentiments, but it doesn't mean I have an allegiance to a political party. So when I state
Right.
that to somebody that's of like, I have to wear the red cap, I have to do what either side, I'm over here going, guys, like when I insult your guy, it's like a demigod complex where it's like, holy cow. And for me, I've honestly been kind of stumped with this one, Stokes, where I'm like, if we're having one of the worst administrations in the history of our country, why isn't there more people popping up on both sides of the platform saying we got to do better than this? And if we have this many people that are anti-Trump, that for J6, how come they're not like throwing up a plethora of other additional candidates? Like you've literally narrowed it down where it's back down to crap. Like this is. It's like, do I want poop or do I want elephant poop? It's like, no, I don't want either one. Like, and I think for myself, it's not anarchy, but it's very libertarian in the diehard sense of you do you, I do me, and at the end of the
Mhm.
day, you cross my property line, we're going to have a discussion. Fourthly, I have the right to debate you with wherever mentality that you're currently at, if you have the logic and capabilities to discuss that with me. If you don't, then you're NPC, go away. And I think that makes a lot of people upset, but I'm like, no, I'm not sure about you, but I think we're living in a peer range where a lot of folks, they recycle what mommy and daddy told them, and it's just the thing we've always done. And then there's the other half that are literally, poor me, I have to do something different to my body to look, be noticed, or I have to do join some sort of pop cultural thing at this time in this group and that community. And there's never anything where they're over here going, not for me, I got to do better, and I'm going to just stand apart from both of that. And it's pulling yourself up and defining yourself for who you are. Is there any of that? Again, in your part of the country, do you think there's a little bit more of an independent streak of we're not playing those games, not necessarily dictated by politics, but just as a surrounding cultural vibe?
On the political spectrum, I would say absolutely not.
No.
This is a very heavily pro-Trump area.
Okay.
Uh, Personally, I'm not a fan of Trump. I personally, my
the guy I wanted to see in political office was Ron DeSantis.
I got you.
I think he's a lot better than Trump, but this you don't this area you don't have a lot of the political diversity that you're talking about.
Okay.
Basically, if you're an incumbent, you're gonna stay in. There's been a couple of independents uh, in the state elections that I've been trying to get in and voting for, and they get less than 6% of the popular vote.
Typical.
So it's very rare for somebody who's not part of one of the two main parties to get into office, even in this state.
I think
But
that's a cultural thing because they've funneled it down, or it has to be one or the other. And I'm not
absolutely
100% for mail-in voting,
I
but one
hate
thing I do
the
like,
two-party system.
yeah, one thing I do like about the mail-in voting, or not mail-in, what is it? Basically, you do a checkbox of the 5 candidates. Doesn't matter their party. You just pick them like on one scale of 1 to 5, and then you'd pick this one's a 3, this one's a 2, this one's totally a 5 on my thing. But it funnels it down. I think Maine's done this, and I was over here to that extent because I'm more of let's stop doing political parties. Let's start going back to tribal, where we are respecting the chief, not commander in chief, but I'm saying the chief. There's an elder, and we're respecting him. And again, it's not government. It's literally so laid back in the sense of like, you guys do what you want, but on an international scale, I'll be the figurehead. For the most part, I don't interfere with you people. I think ideally, if I could dream of a utopia version, that would be it. But I know that's never going to happen. But it's also like you don't need taxes. You don't need all this crap stuff that it's excessive. And a lot of our politicians that we got, they're all political prostitutes. And I can't understand. So some people, they're over here saying, well, it's better than the other one. I'm like, well, dude, he's still selling his soul in the lobbying sense to the other side. So, yeah. Anyways, any other topics you'd be open with discussing?
I can't think of any specific topic, but I'm pretty much, me, I'm pretty much open to talk about just about anything.
I know. I think we could wrap it up here. Are you ever thinking of doing podcasting yourself if anybody wanted to follow you?
I've considered it.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the podcasting that I've considered looking into doing is about sports.
Okay.
Mainly football. I'm a huge NFL nerd, and so that's just about the only podcasting that I've considered looking into doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm nowhere near to the point of even starting anything like that.
Gotcha. Well, Stokes, it's been real.
Yeah.
It was lovely catching up with you and discussing stuff. Usually I would say like this is where you'd plug in your stuff, but I know you kind of like keeping reserved to yourself. As you said, you barely are keeping in touch with other folks in your social sphere. But thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate your views and insights. I'll try to edit up where you went a little quiet here and there and amp it up as best I can. Still learning the technology, folks. And until next time, this is the Manna Daily Podcast, and I will catch you guys on the next one.